So it's week 25 and the early kickoff at the King Power Stadium. Pitched third place Leicester at home to fourth place Chelsea. On paper it looked like a promising game, and it really was a exciting clash. Enjoyed it a lot. Team news then: Hudson-Odoi and Pedro. A rare start for Pedro. He's been out of the first team for some time now, but he was selected ahead of Willian, who was on the bench. Leicester, Ndidi had a problem, so Chowdhury was in from the start. And two well-matched sides. Chelsea looked pretty dangerous down the left early on. They had a greater hunger and were taking the game to the Foxes, but stubborn defensive work by Leicester, particularly by Everton, who foiled two efforts early on. They started to improve a little bit, but they certainly started looking rather drained from that semi-final in midweek in the EFL Cup. Odoi was getting some space on the right, and he was looking dangerous. And early on, he fed Mount in the box, but the shot went high, and he was ruled offside anyway. Azpilicueta had a great chance to get the ball back to Abraham, but it was just behind the striker, and so the chance slipped away. And then a minute later, Abraham again involved, and he failed to connect with a gilt-edged chance from a cross. So we got to 22 minutes, and the first meaningful attack for Leicester. A lot of good movement off the ball, a couple of shots blocked from Tielemans and Ricardo. Caballero was in for Chelsea in place of Kepa. He's been a recent acquisition in the transfer window. On 24 minutes, Maddison free kick from the right went into the 6-yard box, but Evans failed to convert. And then Caballero managed to block a Vardy shot. That was his first effort, and it was a reasonable chance. 27 minutes, Tielemans put through on the right, and again no telling cross. And we got to minute 32, and a nice flowing move down the left, and Chilwell pulled back to Barnes, but his effort was well over the bar. A few minutes later, a corner by the Foxes, and again it came to Chilwell, but his effort went just over. And then on 41 minutes, Chelsea back on the attack. Sturdy defensive work, particularly from Evans again, brought that effort to an end. And some more Chelsea pressure towards the half-time whistle, but that final ball was lacking by both sides. So we hit the break, and it was goalless. So second half then, and it didn't take long for the deadlock to be broken. We're a minute in, and a cross from Mount from a free kick was headed into the net by Rudiger, and that was on minute 46, so Chelsea won up. Didn't take long for the Foxes to reply though. 53 minutes, swift move down the left, Barnes picked the ball up, he cut inside, and his shot had a vicious deflection that went wickedly over Caballero and into the corner, and so it was back level 1-1. Leicester then on top after that, and on 64 minutes they took the lead. Caballero got out of his goal area, trying to quell attack and cross from the right, but the ball was pulled back, and Chilwell, arriving in the box, hit the ball with his right foot into the middle of the goal, 2-1, and definitely the goalkeeper at fault. So the Foxes in front, but again it didn't take long before things started to look better for Chelsea. Although on 68 minutes a Tielemans drive forced a good stop from Caballero, but then on 70 minutes Rudiger, once again a superb header, this one wide of Schmeichel, following another assist from Mount, and we were back level 2-2. Lampard then made a couple of changes. Willian and Kovacic came on for Jorginho and Pedro, and it was still end-to-end stuff. A block corner by Maddison, a block corner following a free kick by Maddison on 76 minutes, which was a half chance for the Foxes. And then Bardi put Barnes through on 79. It was a beautiful through ball, but Barnes' final connection went inches wide of the post. So that was about it. We had 5 minutes of added time. Both sides still pressing for the winner, but it was about right at the final whistle. Full-time score then at the King Power Stadium was Leicester 2, Chelsea 2. So, to the league leaders at Anfield, Liverpool are home to Southampton, the ever-improving Southampton, up to 9th. This looked quite a difficult test on paper for Liverpool, and they were also without Mane. He was injured. Oxlade-Chamberlain up front in deputising for him. For Saints, they had Long and Ings up front. Ings is in great form at the moment. Gnabry also started. Liverpool's formidable 23 wins from 24 games, 1 draw, still look rather daunting for Hasenhüttl. Ings, though, 16 goals this season, so he is certainly not out of form. Early on, Saints looked good. Gnabry had an opportunity, but at the last moment managed to stumble over his foot as he headed for the 6-yard box. And 14 minutes, another good move by Saints. This time, Gnabry looking very lively. And 16 minutes, first real assault by Liverpool, and it was from Arnold on the right. His cross-come shot went pretty close, but just over the bar. 19 minutes, real first chance for Salah, and he managed to get onto an effort laid to him by Oxlade-Chamberlain, but it was deflected wide. Following the corner, though, Saints frantically getting the ball clear and increasing possession for Liverpool as the first half wore on. But Saints still looking dangerous on the counter, and that man Gnabry once again forcing Alisson this time to push his shot away on 26. Then an effort from Oxlade-Chamberlain on 29, but his effort was deflected just wide. 40 minutes, Salah, a great pass that found Van Dijk, anticipating it well. He is in the box, and he tried an audacious back flick heel with his heel, which was saved by McCartney, who also blocked Firmino's follow-up, but it was the closest Liverpool had come so far. And some more purposeful passing by the Saints midfield, and this time Redwood had the final shot on 34 minutes, but it was deflected for a corner. And then a little bit later, another effort, this time from Arnold, from a free kick, but it hit the wall and was cleared comfortably. That was about it for the first half. We got to the break goalless, and Saints were well worth it. So into the second half then. It didn't take long for Liverpool to up the ante, and they took the lead within a minute of the restart. Oxlade-Chamberlain got the ball fed to him on the left side, and he marched in towards the penalty box, and he hit a neat shot that had a slight deflection, but went in the corner to McCarthy's right, and so the Reds had got in front 1-0. And to be honest, they didn't really look back after that. Although there was a good response by Saints initially, Ginepri again being creative, but then another swift counter by the Reds. Firmino put a through ball to Salah, who clipped it in the net, but he was a fraction offside. And then up the other end, Ings, he had a half chance, and it was deflected wide. But he really was looking a handful along with Long. But then on 59 minutes, somewhat fortuitous a clearance from Alexander-Arnold from inside his own half out to the left flank, and Firmino on the left picked up the ball and he guided it beautifully in the path of Henderson, who was running into the box, and he swept it viciously past the keeper for 2-0, and Liverpool were really in the comfort zone from then on. And then we had, to be perfectly frank, it flattered Liverpool a bit, but we had a couple of pieces of magic from Salah to complete the rout. The Egyptian has a magical touch, and he scored the first of his goals was delightful after he got put through, and he dinked the ball gently over the advancing McCarthy to put it 3-0, and then he added a fourth late in the game to make it a pretty comfortable stroll for Liverpool. Although if you'd seen the first half, you would never have expected this to have happened. But they are looking a class act. My man La Mancha's Gomez at the back, because the two strikers for Southampton were real threats, and he for once outshone Van Dijk. A tremendous performance from him, but Henderson was also considerable in midfield, and of course, as he's the skipper, he leads by example. So full time at Anfield then, Liverpool 4, Southampton 0. So to Old Trafford, Wolves visitors. This is the third time in as many weeks that they've gone head to head. This far, one win for United and a draw in the FA Cup. But Fernandes was on debut for Manchester United, in for Matic. He's just been signed from Sporting Lisbon for a gobload of money, and lots of optimism about this signing. Mata was also in, and on the bench for Wolves was their new signing, Podence. This match marked the annual tribute to the Munich air disaster victims, so it was a rather solemn affair. Traore blazed wide early on. That was the first chance for Wolves, and Fernandes on the edge of the shot, on the edge of the box, showing he's not embarrassed to give it a shot. He scored a lot of goals in the Portuguese First Division, but he didn't manage to trouble Fabianski, and it was goalless at the half. Mata went close from the edge of the box into the second half, and Jimenez marauding run, but his shot was pushed over by De Gea. A couple of other half chances, but this one ended as a goalless draw. A pretty poor event really for the spectators, but anyway, another point for the Red Devils, another clean sheet, as Solskjaer put it. Final score then, Manchester United 0, Wolves 0. St James's Park, Newcastle entertaining Norwich, and it was not a classic by any stretch of the imagination. An early Byron header found De Brogba alert, and a Joe Linton header from a Yedley cross brought a great save from Kroll, but that was about it in the first half. Another good save from Maximus started the second. His cross was deflected by Hanley, and the keeper Krul had to be very alert to push it behind. There was a late chance for Pukki. He forced a save from De Brogba, but basically it ended goalless. A good point for Norwich, but disappointment for Bruce. So to the London Stadium and West Ham at home to Brighton. This was a sort of relegation battle of sorts. West Ham desperately needed some points. One winning 9 for Brighton either, so they were hardly in good form. They had Suchati debuting for West Ham, and Murray was back up front for Brighton. A problem with Mope, I understand. Anyway, early on, West Ham had the better of it, and Diop put them ahead on the half hour following a free kick. His anticipation was sound in front of Ryan. And then on 45 minutes, Snodgrass smacked home a beauty after some poor defending again, and so the Hammers went into the break 2-0. It was a delightful volley from the Scotsman. But after the break, things turned, and on 47 minutes, Fabianski, following a corner, punches the ball out, but unfortunately he punched it straight at his own man, Ogbonna, and it then ricocheted back into the net. And so Brighton were back in it, rather fortunately, by 2-1. 57 minutes, though, Snodgrass restored the 2-goal lead, and his effort was deflected in off a defender. So they looked like they were in the driving seat, but Brighton were having none of it. And Gross managed to clip in an effort from another piece of craziness in the West Ham defence, following an error by Ogbonna, and so Brighton were back to 3-2. And then that man Murray managed to latch onto a cross from the right. It looked like it might have been handball, but VAR were happy with it on review. Murray slotted the ball comfortably in the corner, and that was on 74 minutes. And so Brighton had pulled it back, and we were level at 3-3. And they could have actually snatched it when Solly March's free kick was tipped over by Fabianski almost at the final whistle. So anyway, we got to the full-time whistle. An exciting game, lots of goals, poor defences, but West Ham had drawn with Brighton by 3 goals each. So a great game at the London Stadium. And a great game at Vicarage Road involving Watford, who were at home to Everton, it was really a game really of 2 halves. Well, not quite 1 half, but let's get into the action. Deeney, 5 goals in the last 7. Sigurdsson, Iwobi and Richardson were back for the Toffees, and they were on the back foot early on, and they went behind fairly early to Messina, whose left foot shot was followed some good work from Delafeo, and that was 1-0 for Watford. They doubled their lead not long after, but this followed an error by Delph, and Deeney latched onto it and fed Ferreira, who hit a sweet effort pass Pickford for 2-0. We got to injury time in the first half, and up until that point Everton had been absolutely diabolical really, and could have been further behind, but I don't know what happened, but Watford went to sleep in the added time, and they conceded 2 goals from 2 set pieces at 2 corners. The person who was the benefactor was Mina, the Colombian, from 2 headers, and amazingly they went into the break 2-2. Pearson really couldn't quite understand it. His second effort was a good header, but the marking was atrocious. Then Delph managed to get himself sent off for Everton in the second half for a rather petulant challenge, having been already put on 1 yellow. But it didn't matter a bit, because as we got deep into the second half, around about 80 minutes, Walcott managed to get the Toffees winner, and that was his first goal of the season. He managed to sweep the ball home after some good play, and a block had sent the ball to the right, and Walcott was too nippy for Foster and clipped it past him, and so Everton had snatched the win. So full-time score at Vicarage Road was Watford 2, Everton 3. So to the Bournemouth match against Aston Villa, to the Vitality Stadium. Cherries were unchanged after their recent win against Brighton. Rayner was in goal for Villa, still deputising for Heaton. Early effort for Gosling was a whipped effort, just went over, and up the other end a Grealish effort, a curled sort of cross-come shot, went desperately close, but then on 37 minutes the deadlock was broken by Billing. He latched onto a cross and headed into the net, and it was 1-0. Ake doubled the lead from a free kick after that kick had been parried by Rayner, and so Cherries were 2 up at the break. Second half, things started to go a little bit astray for Bournemouth after Lerma got a second yellow, so they were down to 10 men and they started to creak, and eventually on 70 minutes Samata on debut headed the ball over Ramsdale to peg it back to 2-1, but Eddie Howe's boys hung on. A desperate win again for them. They took this game by 2-1. At Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace entertained high-flying Sheffield United. Brief highlights here. Both defences have been pretty sound. Benteke was back up front for Palace, still looking for that goal though, to get off the mark this season, and it was a pretty average first half really, but things started to happen in the second half, and a catastrophic error by Guaita following a Sheffield United corner. He managed to catch the ball, but then proceeded to step over the goal line, and the referee had no hesitation in awarding a goal, much to the amazement of the Sheffield United strike force, and that proved to be enough. There were a few efforts from Southampton, but Sheffield United are pretty good at defending leagues, and they defended this one, and although Palace fought hard, they never really created many chances. So final score at Selhurst Park was Crystal Palace 0, Sheffield United 1.